I've got something slightly different. We've got a piece that was originally written as a spoken word piece. It was written by the wonderful Elsie Bryant, and it's going to be performed for you today by Brennan, and it was directed by Treadell.
So this is trigger warning, and this is our last piece before we take a short interval. So everybody, trigger warning. I'm trying to find a way to translate my experience so you can relate, but I'm waiting for the moment when you stop listening, when you hear men and think I'm talking only about you and take it personally, and I have to apologise that you feel angry and accused. I have to stroke your bruised ego, stop you feeling abused, tell you it's not about you. Just for today, it's not about you. And we talk in hypotheses and get lost in analogies of consent and drinking tea. But this isn't an analogy. For me, this is reality. And then I hear it. But how unconscious was she? And inside, a little bit of me dies because you're already searching for anomalies. And the lines are drawn and the stakes are high. Did they know each other? Was she drunk? Some women lie. And I'm sat here feeling suffocated by concessions because every concession feels like confession, because every inch you want me to give feels like a mile, because every inch I give is laid out on trial. But if you'd have been there, if you'd have seen her, you'd know that the inches weren't wanted. This was not her error, her misdemeanour. Was it a finger or a dick? How do we define rape? And once again, we're back here at square one. Me desperate to escape this Groundhog Day. You scrutinising laws that rarely protect the woman, making excuses for the abuse. Well, was she drunk? Yeah, but he was drunk. Silencing the silent women, raped, molested, assaulted, beaten. You don't hear them over the howls of the women who cried wolf. And you ask again, did she walk there with him? And I can feel the fear rising within because you were meant to be one of the good ones. And I remember that it's never safe. Not really. I will always have to justify my vulnerability. I'll have to fight to be acquitted of culpability because no isn't enough. Because I led him on, wore a short skirt, should take responsibility. And I've tried to relate your experience of gender to my experience of race. To understand why you might be triggered by this. I tried to imagine me staring a black person down, telling them they're wrong. I'm not racist. All lives matter, not all white. We're living in a post-racial society. There's no privilege in my identity. Whitewashing over gentrification, incarceration, discrimination. And ignoring every statistical indication that things are skewed systemically, even though the facts are there. It's black and white supremacy. You dance around the theoretical while I'm drowning in experience. I tell you, I walk down dark alleys with my keys slotted between my fingers and you tell me you do the same. And I feel sorry for you, I do. Because we both know this inequality isn't good for either of us. And you're white, and you're male, and you're straight. And the world is full of rocks and hard places, but I'm falling from mine, and I'm calling for help, and you can't hear me. I don't need you to catch me, but some solidarity, some empathy, some understanding will break the fall, believe me. And then we're back here, full circle, looking at each other, and you say, but it takes two people to get there behind the bins. And I can feel the uneasy feeling growing inside of me as we discuss degrees. What is rape? Take a deep breath. And here I am, once again, laying myself bare, reliving it all as I say, I've been raped. And you're silent. And I wait for you to ask me, as loved ones have, if I'm sure. But you don't. Thank you for that. You listen as I calmly tell you the story, which I've told very few, because I didn't want the label or the judgment or the scrutiny of people like you. I take a deep breath and edge forward. I was drunk, which is an instant -10, but he poured me drinks, which adds 10 on again. I lose 10 for going to his home, but clawed 10 back because I didn't go alone. What was I thinking going into his bedroom? -10? Or kissing? Surely sex was assumed. -10. When he pushed me onto the bed, I backed away. I said no, that's 10 plus 10, but I didn't fight him off, didn't shout for my friends so I lose them again. It happened so quickly, it was a blur. I was wearing a dress, we kissed, so tell me, how did I score? Do we deserve this? I wait for the judgment on my agency, my accountability. I wait for your reaction to my 20 minutes of action. 20 minutes! 20 minutes is a fantasy because in truth there's no end to this rapacity. The waiting for periods to come through. The waiting for too thin lines to turn blue. The waiting in lines in hospital queues. The waiting and wishing and hoping and praying that none of this is true. Having to see his face again. Tired bodies carry loads heavy with secrets. Tired bodies feign illness to hide sickness. Tired bodies battered by anger and fear. Tired bodies battling back tears. Hearing the immortal words, it's not legal here. Having to see his face again. Battered by anger, fear, self-loathing, hated. Battered by phone calls home, questions, doubt. Battered by, but you were drunk, right? On a night out. Pseudo choices, form scans. The fate of a tiny life in my hands. The months of being tested for HIV while uneasy nurses question me about my TOP. Long lists of women waiting to be seen, to be ticked off, discharged, dealt with nervously. Our hearts break, but we don't. We go on, rebuilding our lives while supporting yours. We're strong, dodging victimhood, while this sport leaves us fighting on life support. Well, how can I make you see that this isn't just a story, this isn't just history, this is reality for millions of us, a daily actuality. And you're looking at me, and I'm out on a limb, and we're so close now I can almost reach you. I want to scream at you, so how do I score now? Have I tripped up? Do you believe me? Am I worthy of your sympathy? Will you join me in agreeing that the system is fucked? I'm not angry at you, I'm angry because yes, all women. And you tell me you're sorry, and I thank you, and we're quiet. And I move the conversation on because we have to, and we're back to theories and what ifs and questions, your accusations cloaked in suggestions, and you bury me in statistics and definitions and facts, but you're happy to ignore the fact that this is 1 in 5 of us. 15% of us ever report it, most of us forced to ignore it, because less than 6% of reports end in conviction, an unsurprising contradiction under male jurisdiction. So you'll forgive me for my frustration, that we're back here again at this junction, talking about consequences rather than the course, teaching women not to be raped rather than men not to rape. I'm sat here naked, stripped, laid bare.